forests of Clun. Edric rode a wild white horse, and it was fearless. It didn't flinch when Edric charged it into battle and rode thigh-high in blood, but it started and skittered like a girl if there was a sudden shower on a sunny day. Bear, badger, fox, hare, stag, deer, far and near, over hill, dale, brook, vale, through sun, wind, rain, hail, till the rocks rang aloud with his hoofs and cries, till the skies span. "The chase is better than heaven," he said, as a golden fawn crossed his path. It stared at him with amber eyes, and then it was off, and Edric was after it. He caught it with a silver arrow, his hounds brought it down, and the hunt was over. Finally it stopped at Stiperstone's Hill, and Edric, exhausted now, lay down in the sweet, sweet heather and slept. And dreamed that the stars were singing to him. And when he woke, the music was still there. And it seemed to him that the lid had come off the world. He was ankle deep in flowers. Blue cornflower, yellow primrose, red poppy. He came to a hill and he saw 6 dancers, and the 6 dancers were dancing between 7 trees. Their cloaks were green, their hair was... There was another in their midst, spinning so fast her golden hair was a fairy mist and her dress a circle around her. Her palms were heavenward, her eyes upturned, and as Edric stared at her, his heart burned for her, yearned for her. He must have her. And so he strode into the dancing circle, and with one arm he picked up the dancing girl, and with the other arm he fought off her sisters. More beasts now than sisters. Their eyes were fire, their teeth were claws, their hands were fangs. But he put her on his horse, and as they rode, villagers way below looked up and saw 2 figures on a wild white horse. He took her back to his horse, set her by the fire, and then he went down on one knee and he offered her his lands, his life, his heart, if she would just consent to be his wife. But she just stared at him with wide eyes, her mouth opening and shutting like a wet fish on a dry rock. And she didn't speak. She didn't eat or drink. She sat in his feasting hall. She didn't smile at his jokes or flinch at his stories for 3 days. And on the 3rd night, finally, she spoke. She said, "I am one of 7 star sisters who came down to earth to dance on Midsummer's Day, and you've separated me from my sisters. You are Edric, straight and true, and I will marry you on one condition, that you never mention my dancing and never mention my sisters." And Edric swore by his wild white horse never to mention her dancing and never to mention her sisters. And so they were married. If time were a line of bunting, and every ribbon a feather, and every flower a bone, from that day to this, there hasn't been a happier man on his wedding day than Edric. He was over the moon, he was inside out, not a shred of doubt, not a day. Edric woke up and she wasn't there. The leaves were turning. First hour he'd shrugged it off. Second hour he chopped wood. The 3rd hour he paced up and down his hall. The 4th hour he saddled his horse, called for his men and went to look for her. The 5th hour he was frantic, searching through branch and bracken, calling for her. When finally he came home, she was just sitting there in the hall. His hair was matted with sweat, his jaw was set, his boots, the hooves of his horse were covered with mud. "Where have you been?" But she just stood up and opened her arms and said, "I'm here now." He threw her back in the chair and feathers and flowers flew from her pocket. "I suppose you've been dancing with those sisters of yours." He covered his face with his hands, and when he turned round, she was gone. Not a whiff of perfume, not a whirl of a skirt. He thought that she was just teasing him, testing him. And so he searched all their secret places, but when he finally realised that she must have left him, he ran to the top of Stiperstone's Hill and called her name, begged her forgiveness. And when there was no response, he got on his wild white horse and he rode. He didn't get off his horse. He rode and he rode till the flesh flew from his bones, till the breath blew from his socket, and even then he carried on riding, carried by his wild white horse. And when finally it faltered and fell, the villagers were able to bury Edric, but they couldn't separate his bones from the bones of his horse. And if you talk to the people of Shropshire today, they'll tell you that Edric is riding still. They'll tell you that they've seen him on wild nights, full of energy, like the night before a mine is closed or a war declared. And they'll say that they've seen him with his hounds around him and his horn, and that he's chasing a golden fawn, or maybe a woman with long flowing hair. Or sometimes they say it's a little light that flickers in the distance, but you'll know if they're telling the truth. Because if they are, their eyes will burn a little brighter, their skin will turn a little paler, and their bones show through a little sharper. And if you see that, you can be sure that Edric is riding still.